He transferred to the worst school in Korea just to look smart. To everyone else, Gaiman is just a weak NPC with thick glasses. But when they mess with his favorite teacher, NPC mode is disabled. The glasses come off, and the bullies realize the nerd they mocked is actually the final boss. Meet Gaiman, 15 years old, currently staring at a test paper that looks less like an exam and more like a crime scene investigation, every answer bleeding red ink. His academic performance isn't just bad, it's catastrophically, historically terrible. Here's the thing about Gaiman. He tells himself this comfortable lie that grades are meaningless, that alternative paths exist, that he's totally fine with mediocrity, except he's absolutely not fine. Beneath that facade, this kid desperately craves academic validation. He studies, he tries, and somehow, inexplicably, his scores remain stubbornly abysmal. His working theory? Nobody at home helps him study. Which, fair enough. But maybe cracking open the textbook more than once a week might help too. Just saying. Then everything shifts. Walking home one afternoon, he discovers his mother waiting with a surprise new tutor. Her name's Han Gung, 23 years old, and absolutely stunning. She's about to become the most pivotal person in this disaster story. The instant Gaiman sees her, he freezes completely. Whatever book he'd been holding gets shoved behind his back immediately, and he just nods silently like a deer caught in headlights. His mother watches this suspicious behavior unfold, then leans toward Han Gung, whispering cryptically about Gaiman dealing with some seriously strange issues lately. Very ominous mom energy happening here. Han Gung manages an awkward smile, promising everything will work out fine. Unfortunately for her, she's about to enter the most chaotic teaching assignment of her entire existence. That evening, Han Gung begins her tutoring sessions. She sits beside Gaiman, methodically explaining linear programming problems, demonstrating how to isolate variables. And shockingly, he actually comprehends it. For possibly the first time ever, mathematics makes sense in his brain. Han Gung seems genuinely impressed. She tells him that maintaining this momentum could dramatically improve his grades. Then she does something completely unexpected. She makes him shout positive affirmations about being capable of success. Gaiman mumbles it quietly, clearly mortified by his own existence. She pushes harder. He finally shouts louder, "I can do it." And here's the wild part, it actually works. Over the following 2 years, Gaiman's performance legitimately improves. Not genius level improvement, but noticeable progress. Unfortunately, there's still one critical problem lurking beneath this progress. Gaiman's brain fundamentally doesn't seem built for traditional academics. The kid's grinding as hard as humanly possible and still struggling. Currently, Gaiman attends a technical vocational high school, and when describing this place as rough, that's underselling it dramatically. This institution makes typical inner-city schools look like luxury private academies. While Gaiman attempts studying, 2 students at the adjacent desk start fighting. Within seconds, they're throwing hands. The entire classroom immediately swarms around them like spectators at an underground fight club, cheering and filming. Gaiman gets knocked to the floor in the absolute mayhem. This is his daily reality, by the way. He's attempting to focus on college entrance exams while attending the most violent technical school in the entire region, a place where actual learning is considered fundamentally impossible. The school's official name is Technical Vocational High School, but everybody calls it something else, the Criminal Training Academy. Trying hard academically here is viewed as completely pointless, actually socially punishable. But in this absolute hellscape, one person refuses to surrender. One student perceives this nightmare environment as some twisted opportunity. That student is Gaiman. His entire philosophy? A terrible situation resembles falling into hell, but it'll help him discover an opportunity. He deliberately selected this school, believing that surviving here will make college life's freedom worth the suffering. His only hope involves grinding through these years and creating what he calls a route, basically a pathway that conceals the embarrassing truth about attending a vocational school packed with delinquents and literal gang members. This kid really decided that by entering a school full of gangsters who don't study, it would be easy for him to get high scores and then enter university. Gaiman's survival strategy stays simple. Keep his head down, ignore the violence, study late into the night, crush tests. His endgame? Getting into university through pure determination and becoming what he calls a true winner. Then one completely ordinary day, their teacher drops an announcement. They're getting a new homeroom instructor because the previous one rage quit. Gaiman's heart absolutely plummets when he sees who walks through that door. It's Han Gung, his former tutor, now assigned as the homeroom teacher for this specific class of violent delinquents. She introduces herself cheerfully and optimistically, completely oblivious about what kind of war zone she just entered. The students below completely ignore her introduction, immediately turning to gossip and chaos. Since this is a private school, the previous teacher just shrugs and abandons her completely, literally walks out. She attempts establishing order, slamming her hand on the desk and announcing she'll explain classroom rules. Then someone straight up throws something directly at her face. Direct hit. Gaiman's eyes widen. Han Gung can't even process what just happened. She stares at the projectile flying toward her, quickly raising her hands for protection. The student who threw it casually apologizes for accidentally hitting the teacher, then suggests she should just leave and end class early instead of wasting everyone's time with boring regulations. First day on the job and already getting assaulted by students. Her teaching certification definitely didn't prepare her for this nightmare. Han-gung wipes her face, desperately attempting to maintain composure. The students keep trash talking below her. A dark-haired guy cursed the thrower, saying he threw his stuff. The thrower laughs. Then his face darkens as realization hits he just got called an idiot. He asks if the guy's brain malfunctioned. The dark-haired student smirks, basically asking what he's going to do about it. And just like that, the first student, this guy named Hungo, literally grabs him and throws him straight through the window. Not metaphorically, literally through the actual glass window. While Han-gung processes this insanity, other students casually comment about how this is Hungo's 50th fight just this month alone, like it's normal Tuesday statistics. Hungo mocks his opponent about not being equals despite hanging out, then jumps out the window after him. They start full-on brawling in the school garden. The entire class rushes to the windows for spectating. Some kids are already placing bets. 50,000 won on Hungo. The fight is absolutely brutal. Then suddenly, a voice cuts through everything. It's Tam Ken, the school disciplinarian. Students scatter like cockroaches when lights turn on. He's too late though, left standing there panting and exhausted, complaining about troublemakers and questioning his entire career choice. He turns toward Han-gung absolutely furious, demanding why she stood there silently watching instead of intervening. She stammers some explanation, but he cuts her off, says he's not surprised temporary teachers have zero sense of responsibility. Before she can defend herself, he orders her to clean up the broken glass and walks away. This man really blamed the brand new teacher for not stopping a fight that included someone getting defenestrated. Make it make sense. Han-gung obediently grabs cleaning supplies and starts sweeping shattered glass. While focused on the task, a shard slices her hand open. Blood immediately wells up. It stings badly. She stares at the wound momentarily, then tears just start streaming down her face. The reality of this situation hits her all at once. That's when Gaiman approaches and silently hands her a band-aid. She quickly wipes her tears and thanks him, but when she turns around, recognition finally hits. Her former student, the kid she tutored before taking this teaching job. She's genuinely shocked, saying she never imagined they'd reunite like this. She admits maybe she shouldn't have quit tutoring just to pursue her teaching certificate. Real regret colors her voice now. Gaiman looks at her directly and points out that becoming a teacher was her actual goal. He asks if she'll continue teaching here. Han-gung nods, explaining today was just the beginning. Even though it wasn't smooth, and even though the previous homeroom teacher quit after 1 month, she refuses to surrender easily. She insists she hasn't really started yet. She genuinely believes that even if these troublemaking students can't follow the right path initially, as long as they're determined to face problems together, the students can definitely find their way. There's real conviction in her voice. A warm smile spreads across her face. But suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. The gang approaches. The school's most notorious delinquents walking together, discussing how to handle someone. Gamin sees them and immediately warns Han-gung to stay away, explaining that Hungo's gang consists of the most brutal delinquents in the entire school, and they never listen to anyone. He turns to point out where she should go for safety, but Han-gung's already gone. She's walked directly into their path, confronting them head-on. She firmly tells the students to extinguish their cigarettes immediately. "Ma'am, read the room. These kids literally threw someone through a window 20 minutes ago." Han-gung insists it's not about rules though. Points out that cigarette prices might be fixed, but their health isn't. She suggests it would be better if they stopped, explaining she's genuinely trying to help them. She even tries smiling warmly, like this is a wholesome after-school special or something. Hungo frowns, clearly annoyed by her persistence. Gamin hides around the corner, internally panicking. Then Hungo actually throws his cigarette away, asks if she really came all the way here to help them stop smoking. Han-gung answers happily, confirming that's exactly why. But then he raises his hand and straight up slaps her across the face. Full force, zero hesitation. Gaiman stands completely frozen in shock. Han-gung stumbles backward from the impact. Hungo acts like absolutely nothing happened, asks if this is her first time seeing a student hit a teacher, points out that teachers can hit students whenever they want, so they're just returning the favor. The guys around him join in, mocking how shocked their teacher looks. They start speculating about what would happen if she reports them. Joke that maybe the story would make the news with some headline like "Female teacher trips and falls." Hungo laughs cruelly, questioning her whole "helping us" claim, and pointing out she's just a temporary teacher anyway. Han-gung tries arguing that they're wrong to think that way, starting to say that temporary teachers are also legitimate educators. Another student cuts her off immediately, comments that this lady is really talented at saying ridiculous things. Hungo leans down toward her menacingly, suggesting one slap wasn't enough for this teacher. Another guy adds a mocking comment, then suggests they should teach her instead. Han-gung becomes genuinely terrified now. She wraps her arms around herself protectively, tears starting to fall. She begs them not to do this, asking if growing up to become bad people is really the future they want. Naturally, they don't listen to a single word. They stand around her in a circle, laughing mockingly, telling her to give them money so they stop smoking. Gaiman watches from his hiding spot, witnessing everything. In his head, he's remembering what Han-gung said earlier about how even if troublemaking students can't follow the right path, as long as they're determined to face problems together, the students can definitely find their way. She said those words with such genuine belief. He remembers all the time she helped him study, how she gave him motivation when everyone else gave up on him. Images of her encouragement flash through his mind like a montage. He grips his hands into fists, gathering every ounce of courage he has. Then he steps forward. Hungo notices him immediately, asking in surprise who he is, and questioning if he also needs money or something. Someone explains that this little rat just crawled out from their classroom, but Gamin completely ignores them. He walks straight to Han-gung, who's sitting on the ground terrified, and puts his jacket over her shoulders. He mentions that he told her she couldn't convince them, apologizes for leaving the jacket there, explaining he'll get scolded by his mom if it gets dirty. One gang member cracks his knuckles, complaining that this isn't some romantic drama. He rushes forward to kick Gaiman, but Gaiman doesn't just stand there. He charges directly at the guy and tackles him to the ground. The other two laugh hysterically, mock how the bookworm can actually fight and how embarrassing it is for their friend to get beaten like that. The guy who got tackled scratches his head, claiming he just lost focus momentarily. Then he gets back up and continues fighting with Gaiman. Unfortunately for them, Gaiman's been hiding something major. That philosophy he lives by about terrible situations being opportunities? It's not even his original motto. It belongs to someone very famous. Someone from the book Gaiman was secretly hiding behind his back the day Han-gung first came to tutor him. That person is Bruce Lee, and Gamin has apparently learned way more than just philosophy from his idol. Gaiman punches the guy hard directly in the stomach. The delinquent goes flying backward several meters and crashes hard onto the ground. Gaiman just stands there calmly, listening to them curse at him. His face shows absolutely zero emotion, stone cold. The orange-haired guy yells accusations about Gaiman being insane and fearless. He quickly advances toward Gaiman. Gaiman stares directly at his opponent, completely unfazed. In his head, he's recalling something from before that moment, when his mom whispered to Han-gung about his recent behavioral changes. Those changes were because Gaiman had been secretly training in martial arts this entire time. Back in reality, Gamin suddenly spins and delivers a perfect spinning kick directly to his jaw. Hungo goes flying backward just like his friend, landing hard on the pavement. The other gang members start panicking, seeing their entire situation falling apart. Hungo lies completely motionless on the ground, foam literally bubbling from his mouth. His crew grabs him and straight up runs away. Gaiman watches them flee and just lets out a calm breath, like he just finished a light workout. Han-gung witnessed everything from start to finish, completely shocked by what she just saw. Gamin slowly walks over to her. When he reaches her position, he extends his hand. He mentions that she said she regretted not being his tutor anymore, tells her he's taking back his advice about leaving this school, insists she shouldn't give up but should instead keep helping him with his studies. His voice is firm as he admits his academic progress still hasn't improved at all. Meanwhile, news of Gaiman defeating Hungo reaches one of the gang's senior members. This guy looks down on the whole situation with contempt, calls it a joke about steel fists and pretty faces, then threatens that if the brat dares mess with their guys, it'll be 2-on-1. The kid will either transfer with his tail between his legs, or stay and face the end. And regarding Gaiman's so-called brutal method of getting into college that he once mentioned, this is where that plan truly begins. Bro just revealed his entire secret identity to save his teacher, and his first thought is, anyway, back to studying. The dedication is honestly wild. The next day, while Gamin is training, the security guard approaches him, notes that he arrived at his usual time, then looks at Gamin's physique, and sighs admiringly about his body proportions, comments on how nice it must be to be young. Watching Gaiman perform legitimately difficult training movements, the guard gives him a thumbs up with genuine praise. Gaiman uses literally everything around him for training equipment. The guard stands nearby smiling, saying that no matter how many times he watches, it's always wonderful like watching art. So perfect. While Gaiman focuses intensely on his training routine, the guard suddenly remembers something crucial, mentions it's already past 3:30. Gaiman immediately panics and falls over mid-exercise. He scrambles to his feet and starts sprinting toward home, calling back his thanks and an apology for being in such a hurry. He sneaks back home extremely carefully, quietly opening the door. He'd removed the battery from the door lock earlier, specifically to slip out undetected. As he reinstalls the battery, the lock beeps obnoxiously loud. Gaiman winces, internally cursing its noisiness. After getting inside successfully, he rushes to his room, climbs into bed, and pulls the covers over himself. Lucky timing, he wasn't caught. Literally 3 seconds later, his mom is outside his door, calling him to wake up, tells him to stop being lazy and to remember eating breakfast on his way to school. Gaiman responds obediently like nothing happened, puts on his glasses and mentally tells himself to study hard today. This man is out here training like Rocky at 3 in the morning just to maintain his secret identity. The dedication is honestly absurd. On the other side of town, Han-gung wakes up complaining about only sleeping 3 hours. Memories of yesterday's violent events at school flash through her mind on repeat. She thinks about what Gaiman said about how at this school, it's probably too late to bring those students back to the right path. His worry that she'll witness even worse things in the future. Han-gung shakes her head forcefully, pushing those dark thoughts away. She tells herself firmly not to be discouraged, to remember exactly why she wanted to become a teacher in the first place. She clenches her fists with determination, repeating that she can do this even though she's legitimately scared. Soon, class time arrives. Han-gung walks toward the school gate, feeling genuinely afraid. She whispers to herself that it's okay, repeatedly, gripping her hands tightly to steel her resolve. What she doesn't realize is that Gamin is standing behind her in the distance, watching everything silently. For someone like him who can't learn as easily as others, the first step toward entering university is finding someone else who also wants to go to college. Since nobody will study with him willingly, he'll have to create that person himself. He scans the classroom carefully, spotting one student slumped in the corner. He thinks that guy definitely won't go to college. He continues looking around methodically until he discovers someone bent over their desk, diligently correcting homework. Gamin thinks to himself that this person looks exactly like someone who'll go to college, maybe even a prestigious one. So a few days ago, Gamin approached him. The student's name is Sehun. This guy is literally scouting study partners like a sports recruiter. That one looks college-bound, he'll take him. Gamin adjusts his glasses and smiles, commenting on how Sehun studies hard as usual. Asks if he's free to help with math. Before he can even finish the sentence, Sehun slams his desk violently and storms off. He even turns back to snap angrily, telling Gamin to stop bothering him and claiming he won't even get into college anyway. Gamin mutters under his breath that he does want to go to college, though honestly Sehun looks like someone who won't get in either. Petty, but fair. This doesn't make Gamin give up though. Sehun, meanwhile, is thinking to himself about how persistent Gamin has been for several days straight. He wonders what Gamin actually wants, figuring that teaching someone here will make them way too noticeable. It'll just turn them both into targets for the criminals running this place. He considers Gamin an incredibly stubborn kid. While thinking this, someone places a hand on his shoulder. Assuming it's Gamin, Sehun swats it away aggressively and yells, asking if he's being messed with and if Gamin followed him into the bathroom too. But it's not Gamin. It's Huang Chu, one of the most notorious gang leaders in the entire school. He growls about not being able to wash his hands, calls Sehun a stupid bastard, and orders him to follow. Sehun's face goes completely pale. He knows exactly what this means. Meanwhile, at the teacher's office, after classes end, Han-gung gets called in by the principal. He complains about her being silent during the entire staff meeting, mentions he heard her class had a fight yesterday that broke a window, criticizes her for already being unable to manage them on her literal first day, calls her too soft, says the students ignore her and start fighting because of it. He continues, explaining he chose her because he thought she could become a proper homeroom teacher, says he'll be watching her closely until the end of the year, reminds her that inspectors are coming today, and demands she make sure there are absolutely no problems. Han-gung bows her head submissively and leaves. Even though she clearly reported yesterday that students were smoking near the trash cans, nobody cared at all. They fundamentally can't do anything about students' bad habits anyway. The system is broken. She wonders desperately what she should even do now. While lost in thought walking through the halls, Han-gung witnesses another brutal scene of school violence. A gang member is repeatedly hitting Sehun in the face while cursing about why first-year Class 1 students are causing so much trouble lately. Asks if they can't do anything properly. He smacks Sehun hard on the head with more insults about technical major kids being worthless. After hearing all the insults and witnessing the violence, Han-gung is absolutely horrified. The student being beaten is from her class, her responsibility. When Sehun is finally lying almost motionless on the ground, the gang member shows off to his underlings, announces he'll teach this brat a proper lesson. Sehun lies there crying on the floor, completely helpless. Han-gung grits her teeth, desperately trying to summon the courage to intervene. She takes one brave step forward, but then suddenly, her legs give out. She collapses to the ground. Her whole body trembles uncontrollably. Images of how those students mocked and assaulted her yesterday flash through her mind on repeat. She clenches her fists, wanting desperately to be braver than this. That's when Gamin appears out of nowhere and pulls her to her feet, comments casually about the floor being dirty. Han-gung looks at him in complete confusion. Gamin just tells her not to worry, mentions that Sehun looks like someone who'll get into college, so he needs to be protected. Gamin clenches his fists, his face darkening with determination. Notes that if Sehun transfers schools, it'll cause him massive trouble with his plans. Huang Chu is still standing there cursing at Sehun, commenting on how his behavior has changed, questions why he isn't fighting back like he did earlier. Sehun hugs his head protectively and sobs, apologizing repeatedly and promising he'll never fight back again. Complete submission. Gamin says firmly from outside that he'll definitely save him, adds that Sehun will become a member of his study group. Han-gung, standing behind him, is genuinely confused about what member he's even talking about. Gamin's out here treating study group recruitment like a military extraction operation. This guy has priorities and he will absolutely not be stopped. 3 years ago, Gamin overheard a woman bragging to his mom. She was going on about how her son gathered his friends and formed a study group, and how in the end his midterm average increased by 30 whole points. She explained it was about motivation and how kids these days do this by teaching each other. They can summarize lessons and practice communication skills together. Then that woman asked Gamin's mom why she doesn't tell Gamin to try the same thing. His mom responded hesitantly, suggesting Gamin might not have the ability to do that. Called him a shy child who has never brought friends home even once in his entire life. Thought it would be better for him to study alone. The very next day at school, Gamin tried asking a classmate to study together. He was rejected immediately, flat out refused, with zero hesitation. Gamin swallows nervously, unable to say anything more in response. The student mocks him ruthlessly, mentioning he heard Gamin ranked second from the bottom in the midterms. Questions how Gamin wants to join their group with those kinds of garbage scores when the entire purpose of study groups is to teach each other. Feeling completely humiliated, Gamin apologizes and leaves quickly. Behind him, those students keep gossiping loudly, say that people at the bottom don't deserve to be there with them. They worry about their own mothers criticizing them if Gamin joins, claim he'll drag down everyone's scores as a slow learner. Gamin asked several other students after that crushing rejection. Every single one turned him down. The best students in school all gave different excuses, but it fundamentally boiled down to one brutal reason. He's not academically good enough to study with them. Eventually, he gave up entirely on finding a study group. After returning home that day, he started correcting his homework completely alone in his room. That's when his mom entered, starting to mention the tutor she told him about. She stops mid-sentence when she sees Gamin turn around with tears actively streaming down his face. She rushes over, extremely worried, asking what happened at school or if it's because he got all the answers wrong again. Gamin bows his head, saying he doesn't even know why he feels like this. He just feels frustrated. Admits that the more he got rejected, the more desperately he wanted to join a study group. For someone who wants to learn like him, having a study group is like a distant, impossible dream. He always looked at other successful students with pure admiration and envy. Now he realizes he's not going to be with those geniuses who are completely beyond his reach. Instead, he'll stay with slow learners exactly like himself. He clenches his fists with newfound determination. If the smart kids won't study with him, he'll create his own group from scratch. Back in the present timeline, just as Gamin is about to step forward toward the violence, Han Gung suddenly grabs his hand to stop him. He turns back, not understanding her intention at all. Han Gung stammers, asking if he wants to fight like yesterday and insisting desperately that he can't. She acknowledges that fighting might be normal at this school, but points out that school should be a place for learning, not violence. Violence absolutely isn't allowed regardless of the circumstances. She admits that yesterday she couldn't do anything because she was shocked and frozen, but promises she won't just sit by passively today. She holds his hand extremely tightly, declaring that as a teacher, she simply can't allow it. Gamin looks at her and smiles calmly, agrees that she's absolutely right, confirms that as long as he doesn't technically fight, everything should be fine, right? Inside the storage room at that exact moment, Huang Chu is about to deliver a brutal hit to Sehun. But suddenly, thick smoke fills the entire space out of nowhere. This smoke came from Gamin using a fire extinguisher from outside the room. He sprays it directly into the storage room, creating a massive smoke screen that blinds everyone inside. The gang members start coughing violently and cursing, yelling about who dares interrupt their lesson. While they're yelling and completely disoriented, something comes flying at them through the thick smoke. It's Gamin, wearing a full gas mask, charging in like some kind of action hero to rescue Sehun. Huang Chu gets pushed hard to the ground during the chaos. He glares furiously in the direction the two figures escape, realizing they got away through the back door. Han Gung witnesses this entire operation from outside, acknowledging it's good that Gamin didn't technically fight anyone, but she questions internally whether that wasn't maybe a bit too flashy and dramatic. After successfully rescuing Sehun and getting outside safely, Gamin asks if he's okay. Sehun stares at him in complete confusion and disbelief, asking if it's really him behind that mask. Gamin admits it seems that way, then immediately pivots to expressing gratitude, suggests they should create a study group together to thank him properly. But before Gamin can finish that sentence, Sehun cuts him off aggressively, asks if Gamin even knows who that person was back there. Gamin plays completely dumb, asking who he's referring to. Sehun responds with genuine fear in his voice, asking if he's actually joking right now. Gamin really used a fire extinguisher and a gas mask for a rescue operation, then immediately tried recruiting the victim for study sessions. This man does not lose focus. Sehun explains the absolutely terrifying reality about why their technical vocational school is called part of the Big Four leadership system. It's specifically because of the cruelty and organized youth violence of the gang executive leaders called Enjoy. These people have been systematically cultivated in underground workshop environments for years. Gamin interrupts dismissively, saying he doesn't really care about these ridiculous gang stories, since they're ultimately just a group of people who don't care about actual learning. He tries moving past it, asking again how Sehun feels about joining his study group. Sehun stares in absolute disbelief, clarifying desperately that it's not about whether they care about learning or not. That's completely missing the point. Gamin continues relentlessly, asking if Sehun isn't frustrated about the potential transfer school issue, expresses hope that he's not giving up. Sehun protests that this is literally basic survival information needed to exist in this environment without dying. But Gamin just persists stubbornly, repeating his question about joining the study group yet again. Sehun finally explodes, yelling at Gamin to stop messing with him. He demands to know if Gamin ever considered that by intervening so recklessly and acting completely oblivious to the dangerous power structures at play, he might have just sealed both of their fates. Gamin steps back slightly, genuinely not understanding what's happening, or why Sehun is so furious. Sehun shouts more context about Huangchu specifically, explains that Huangchu doesn't target people he's already defeated. He's done with them once they submit. Once someone gets targeted though, the only thing weak people like them can possibly do is get defeated as quickly as possible to end it. But now that Gamin helped interrupt it, Huangchu still hasn't properly defeated Sehun yet. He continues desperately, saying Gamin might not care about those criminals at all, but he absolutely does care. He states there's something way more important than studying in this hellhole, his own personal safety and survival. Before leaving, Sehun turns back one final time, adds coldly that he thinks Gamin actually does care about the gangs, which is exactly why he wore a mask to hide his identity in the first place. Hearing this brutal truth, Gamin feels like he's been struck by lightning. He collapses to his knees, tears streaming down his face. His entire plan is falling apart. Sehun starts walking away, but then Huangchu catches up from behind, having tracked them down. Gamin quickly puts his mask back on in panic. Huangchu approaches Sehun with an extremely angry expression, commenting sarcastically on how he thought it would be difficult to find them after leaving such an obvious trail. Mocks the entire school as being full of complete idiots, then asks directly who that masked person was earlier. Huangchu demands aggressively to know who the person wearing the mask was, immediately assuming it must be Sehun's friend helping him out. Gamin hides in the corner nearby, listening to everything while trying not to breathe too loud. To his absolute surprise, Sehun claims that it's not his friend at all, says he genuinely doesn't know who that masked person is. Gamin's eyes widen in complete shock behind his mask. He never expected Sehun would actively try to protect him after everything that just happened between them. Huangchu clearly doesn't believe this obvious lie, threatens that he's running out of patience and will now beat Sehun instead of hunting for the masked person. Makes it crystal clear this beating won't end quickly at all. Tears stream down Sehun's face as he braces for what's coming. Gamin stands hidden to the side, thinking intensely about what Sehun said earlier, about how there's something more important than studying in this place: personal safety and survival. Right then, Gamin makes a risky decision that changes everything. He removes his mask completely. On the other side, Huangchu continues his aggressive threatening. Says he'll beat him until he shakes from fear. Says he'll record the entire thing and share it with everyone in school. Warns that anyone who opposes him should prepare to pay the price. While he's still going off on this threatening monologue, Gamin suddenly appears out of nowhere and kicks him directly in the face with brutal force. Huangchu goes down hard, completely blindsided. He shakily stands back up, absolutely furious now. Sehun is terrified, thinking it can't possibly be Gamin who just did that. He looks back to confirm. It's definitely him, mask off, face fully exposed.